Hi, I'm Faster EFT practitioner Kim Brown. Glad you could join me today. And with us also today is Lise Wearing, a Faster EFT practitioner from Canada. Welcome, Lise.
Thank you, Kim. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Lise, you were diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome 15 years ago. So how today have you been able to run in the Boston Marathon, climb to the Everest base camp? How's that possible?
Well, Kim, it's quite the story, actually. When I think about those few months, well, actually a year and a half, where I had chronic fatigue, I could not walk from the gate of my garden to the alley, which is about 30 feet, without having to sit down and rest and come back home and have a nap for half an hour because that was
Wow.
exhausting. So I lived like that for many months. And I didn't know at the time the intimate connection between the body and the mind. And I just thought, oh, it's just worked too hard. I've been sick, and I had been sick in the fall. I had bronchitis, many bronchitis. And I was thinking, oh, it's just my immune system is down, and I'm sure it'll come back. It took a while. And eventually, what I did, the first thing I did at the time, I didn't know EFT or faster EFT or anything like that. So where I went to start to heal was a change of diet. I find that very beneficial, to go from too much refined food and dairy and so on. And so I cut back on a lot. And in the summer, this happened in January, and then in the summer, I actually decided to go for a 10-day fast at a fasting center supervised by doctors in California. So I went there. It's called True North, in case anyone's interested. And I stayed there for 2 weeks. I fasted 10 days and on water, and then I recuperated for another 5 days. And I came back home, and I was pretty skinny and pretty weak. But after 3 weeks, my energy started coming back, and I was able to walk more. It was really good. So that was the end of July, August. I felt stronger. By September, October, because I was feeling better, we decided to start this renovation in our house, but that wasn't a good idea. I wasn't ready. So I had a big dip for a while. But then by January, I feel better. And I started to get more involved in different things. And the first thing that I decided to do is to get a certificate in natural nutrition so that I could help people with this type of condition and many conditions. And that was really helpful. And I did that for a year. I went back to school and did the studies and the exams and all that. And I was able to keep up, and I was getting stronger and stronger. And at the same time, I'd started running a little bit, not much. I was following a very gradual program. So that was the beginning of this journey. But even though I was feeling better physically, I still had these moments of total anger. And then I'd be so angry for a while, and then I'd be really depressed because I would usually blow out, and then I'd feel really sad about that, and I'd get really depressed. So it was this really bad loop that I was in. So I reached out to this gentleman who was a friend of Gary Craig. He had studied with him, and he had this practice not too far from where we lived. So I made an appointment with him, and I'm telling him my story and how angry I was and how justified I was to be angry and so on. And I was carrying on. And then he stood up, came close to me, and started tapping on my face. And I looked at him, and I said, "What is that?" But of course, it was a diffractionation. I totally stopped my story. I didn't even know what I was talking about. And I said, "What did you do? What did you do to me?" And then he said, "Well, I'm a practitioner of EFT, and I've written a book." And that was his book. I think I still have it here. That was the book he had written. And he said, "Well, you can start by getting a copy of this and reading it." And then he said, "I offer some weekend seminars." So I was all excited. I go home, and I start reading this book, and I start doing the tapping on myself. And I took his course, the 3-level course. And then after that, I did, and I felt much better, but I found at the beginning I didn't understand very much what was going on. It wasn't very clear. It was a bit confusing. Anyway, I did order Gary Craig's online course, did all of that, was feeling better, pretty much. I was very active. Then I started doing more running and so on. Eventually, I wanted to be AMET certified, the American Association for Meridian Therapy Techniques, I think it's called. And so I did a level 3 with that lady because I needed to redo the level 3 in order to be certified. And then after that, I decided to do the matrix reimprinting. Matrix reimprinting started shaking things a little bit. Having these big moments where I realized I had these deep set beliefs about myself, such as, I'm not good enough and things like that. And that really shook me to my core. And I was able to re-imprint some of the stories. That was a very good moment. And my husband and I had been doing some trekking, as you mentioned, and we had gone to the Himalayas for the first time. We enjoyed ourselves very much, but something happened during the trip where I got really upset. I really got super angry. And I came home and I tried to explain to my husband what was happening. He would hear none of it. He said, that has nothing to do with me. And of course, that got me even angrier. I said, no, I'm staying out of this. That has nothing to do with me. I was in such a loop of anger. I couldn't get out of it. I tapped until I was blue in the face. I tried all kinds of other things. I was stuck, like stuck. I couldn't believe it. It lasted over a year.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Every time I thought about this trip, I would go right back into it and I would tell my husband about it and I would just dig it in, and it was terrible. I was sad, depressed, and on top of that, angry. So one day, I don't know how I came across Robert Smith's video. I think maybe a friend posted something. Anyway, I clicked on it. And the first time I started tapping with his video, that anger left. All of a sudden I was sort of thinking, well, yeah, I guess I can let that one go. And I was able to understand a little bit more what was happening in my mind and what had caused that anger and what were some of my programs. And all these programs that I had been running, and then I started understanding why I'd gotten chronic fatigue syndrome was an accumulation of years and years and years, when I think of it, of raising 3 children in a state of continuous stress, 24/7 in stress. I had taken other courses to try and understand all this, but I'm telling you, my life was about stress. It was about relationship stress, about money stress, about job stress, with children stress, but I had no way. I was controlled by stress. My life was stress. So I'm not surprised I got chronic fatigue syndrome. Yeah. So it was normal that my body would react with something. Anyway, so that's the story. This is how I got to Faster EFT. And then I did the Track B online program, and I certified last year. And now I've been working mostly with Faster EFT with people. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's the story.
Our bodies aren't meant to be in 24-hour stress.
Totally.
7 days a week, are they?
Yeah, not sympathetic nervous system is for survivals when something really like a bear coming down the street. That's when we use our sympathetic nervous system. But I was using it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Something happened in traffic. There I'd go and and then I'd drop my last child off at daycare, and then I'd worry all morning that she wasn't doing a good job, and was she going to do this right, or this type of. Then I was working in a school, and I'd be in school and I'd be teaching something, and I'd worry, did I do it right? I should have done it differently. Oh, I think she's doing it better than I do. This continuous mindset of stress.
So it sounds like the bottom track that was running in your life was your identity. There was a crisis of identity there that you
Absolutely.
just didn't measure up.
Oh no, I didn't measure up at all. I was lucky, in quotation mark, to have been raised by a very critical mother. She never found anything right with me. She was very good at finding everything that was wrong with me. I understand where she came from. She herself wasn't mothered very much. She didn't. Her mom died when she was very young, and she was raised by her sister. She didn't know really how to mother, and I was the first one. So she had an idea of perfection, which unfortunately I didn't match. Her idea of perfection and my idea of perfection just didn't jive. So we got into some major conflicts, and that was my initial programming, was that no, I wasn't good enough. I didn't measure up. Nothing I ever did was good enough. So continually criticizing myself. So the relationship I had with myself was a relationship of criticism, of doubt, of low self-esteem, of nagging, of pushing, of never really appreciating myself as I really was, always wanting to be different, comparing myself, that kind of behavior. So no wonder
Yeah.
it was a hard life. And then of course I attracted into my life people who also weren't happy with no, I attracted into my life people whom I perceived as not loving me. And they probably weren't very loving also, but I'm sure they did things that were kind, but I didn't see that.
Well,
So,
even if they had, even if
yeah,
you'd been surrounded by people who loved you and
that's
valued you, if you didn't, would that have made any difference?
no,
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 because
because
it's what we do in here, right?
that's right. That's what you perceive. Is how you perceive yourself that you also perceive others, and it's the basis of all relationships. If you don't see yourself as a wonderful person, as a good person, as somebody who does their best with what they've received, and who choose good thoughts, and there's no way that you're going to have a good relationship. It's
Yeah,
impossible. Absolutely impossible.
yeah. Because we have to be more than what we do.
More than what we do. Well, the do part, yes, I agree. But the doing part is also part of our behavior, because behavior really has four components. It has the thinking
Mm-hmm.
and the doing and the feeling and the physiology. That's from Dr. Glasser's choice theory that I have mentioned on my website. He believed that we behave as a whole. And I think Robert Smith goes along that way too. We cannot separate the four components. But the only two we really have a lot of power over is our doing and our thinking. So for example, if you're feeling depressed and you decide you're going to go put on your runners and you're going to go for a little walk, that's an action. But you're going to start thinking differently because you have moved and you have done something, you've generated some endorphins, and you are starting to think differently, and then you feel differently. So you have control over your actions, but of course you have control over your thinking. You can choose to think differently. See, where they are different between that theory, the choice theory that I learned when I was teaching, and what Robert teaches, is that Dr. Glasser does not believe in going back into the past. He
Mm-hmm.
believes in you can always behave in the now. In the now, you can change your thinking, you can change your action, and you will change your feeling and your physiology. But I must admit that I found going back into the past, not to dig it up and to shred it, but rather to rewrite it, to forgive, to move on, to go and make peace with the different people in your past. That I have found very helpful. Very,
Yes, yes. Because if that program or that identity was established when I was 2, because of this particular event, when I'm triggered in that same way, I'm responding from the 2-year-old. I'm really not responding from now, am I?
No, not at all. Yeah, you're responding from the old program and you're feeling the same feeling. That's the feeling that you're feeling now at your age in this moment is exactly how you felt when you were. It's the same chemical signature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're feeling the same thing again. So unless you go back and change the picture to one that is of, I have written the most beautiful stories about my mother, which make me so happy now. When I feel a little down, I just take any of those stories and I read them and I thought, wow, I was so lucky to have had such a wonderful mother. And my mother, of course, had wonderful qualities. She wasn't all
Right.
blah. So I'm able now to see her more than before. I couldn't. All I saw were the bad stuff. I couldn't find anything good about her. But of course, when I started rewriting the stories and going there in the past and forgiving and letting those emotions, those negative emotions just disperse, I found that was very helpful. That added a big dimension to the whole healing process. Because I think healing is all about relationship. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Like the relationship with ourselves, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So quick at pounding ourselves. You didn't do this right. You should have done that better. And why didn't you get up to go to the gym? And how come you didn't do this? And well, look at you. You're getting older. And all this all the time. The relationship with ourselves is the number one relationship. And we have such a hard time. We have such a hard time to accept how wonderful we are. Sometimes I tell my clients, I said, I want you to make a list of 100 things that are right with you. And they go, what? I'll never find 100. Well, yes, you will. Just think. You have eyes that open. You have a nose that smells. You have a mouth to taste. I've already had 3 and I'm just starting. Then you have ears and think about all the other parts of your body and your heart that works 24/7. You never have to think about it. Isn't that amazing? I mean, there's so many good things about us. Just to start with our body and then with our mind and our heart. I mean, we can easily make a list of 100, but no. We focus on, well, look at that. That I don't have, and I have too much fat here, not enough there, and so on. And we pick ourselves apart. And so anyway, relationship number 1 with ourselves, and then of course with others. And everything's a relationship with our loved one, relationship with the guy at the store, relationship with the world, relationship with our environment. It's all about relationships. But if we don't know how to relate to people with respect because of the programming that we've had, it's very hard to have a happy life, to feel happy, to feel fulfilled, to feel good about yourself.
Yes, it is. And that's a wonderful exercise. I love that.
It might take a little while, but it forces you to really focus on the good about yourself. Because like I said, we're really hard on ourselves.
Well, you mentioned that you were an educator. Do you see faster EFT being beneficial to use in the classroom or even just with teachers? Would that be
I think so. I think that teachers who have a tool like this in their classroom, it's invaluable. It's really an invaluable tool. When a child is acting out, if the teacher has taught the basic principle, and it can be done very easily. For example, that she could say, I've learned this amazing stuff over the weekend, and I do that. And when you feel really bad, and let's see, somebody says something, and then you feel sad, you just have to do that. And look, sometimes if I have children in my office, I use this little guy here.
Great.
You just have to tap here, and then you feel so much better. Would you like to try it? So then teacher could easily do something as simple as that. Doesn't have to be a big fancy thing. And if somebody's feeling unhappy, they could just do it on themselves. Very simply done. It doesn't have to be complicated. In my grandson's class, there was the teacher explained about when you're in your green zone, that means you feel good about yourself and you're happy. When you're in the red zone, that means that you're not happy and you're angry and you're sad. And she says, when you're in the red zone, you have to be quiet all by yourself in your room until you're in the green zone, and then you can come out. So my daughter said something happened and he was really upset. And he said, I'm in my red zone and I'm going to go in my room until I feel better, and then I'll come out and I'll be in my green zone. He's only 7. He was 7 at the time. So I thought, that is too cute. But already I think some of the teachers are open to these ideas that we have control over the way we think. That's a very basic thing. And then on top of that, if you can add a little bit of tapping, that really would help a lot. I think the children would acquire a tool that they probably can use for the rest of their lives. Something
and they could go home and teach their parents.
That's right. And you don't have to take a course and you don't have to become certified. All they have to know is that when I do this, I get out of the red zone, I get into the green zone. Right. It can be explained as simply as that.
None of us had to go to a class to learn to use a hammer.
Very good.
We know there's a nail, it's sticking up. I take the hammer.
That's right.
Make it go back down.
Yeah. Very simple and simply done. That's true.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier how choice theory works. Tell us a little bit about the reality therapy. How does it work with faster EFT? Or
this is Dr. Glasser's book, Choice Theory, Reality Therapy. He's passed away in the last few years, but he has an institute, the William Glasser Institute in Los Angeles, I believe. And I had studied that when I was teaching. The school board who hired me was giving the level 1 in this. Free of charge, because we were teaching for that school board. And then after that, if you wanted to get certified in the theory, you could do it on your own. So I had done that. That's before I had gotten sick and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I understood the principle, but I still couldn't deal with the really strong emotions. But the basic principles, I've dug this up for you to the 3 false beliefs is that. Can you read that?
Yes, people make us do things. Oh.
Is that a good one? And the second one is you can control someone.
Oh, my.
And sometimes we think that by being nasty and being angry or being threatening or any of those behaviors, well, we're going to make him or make her do whatever we want by threatening. But, it only works so long. Even when we have children, when they're little, we can control them pretty much until they're about 8 or 9, 10, maybe if we're lucky. After that, forget it.
Yeah.
You cannot use control over them. You have to use a different method because it doesn't work. If you control, they will rebel and you have a big problem on your hand. So you have to realize that when they become a little older, you have to use things such as encourage and support and listen and trust that they have their own solution and negotiate. The art of negotiation enters in the teenage years. If you say, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't, that doesn't work. But as soon as you start negotiating with them and love them and support them, when I raised my last child, I had studied that. And I remember when he went through teenage years, I used to tell him, you're the best teenager ever. You really know how to do teenager. I mean, you do it so well. But with this guy, I had to negotiate. I was much stricter with the first 2 because I didn't know that. And the third one is another false belief is not only do I know what's good for me, I know what's good for you.
Oh, my.
So aren't these 3 false beliefs the basis of all bad relationships?
Wow, yes.
So I think that sort of goes really well with faster EFT.
It does.
Not control anybody else but yourself. You're in charge of your own self. I had a client the other day and she came in really upset about something that had happened with her husband and so on. I said, you know what you're doing? You're driving his car. You've got your hand on the steering wheel and you're trying to go the way you want to go. You're not going to go where you want to go if you're driving his car. The way we tapped, she felt better. She went home. I emailed her and she said, she emailed back and she said, I'm happy to report that I am driving my own car and everything's fine. But I think that's a very good idea, that we think that we can control others by being angry, by being resentful, by, I'll show him. I'm not going to talk to him for the next 2 weeks. Well, who suffers? Not him, because most of the time his perception of the event is so different than yours, then he'll never say anything, or he doesn't understand why you're making such a big fuss over that, because according to him, there was nothing to make an issue about.
Right.
You thinking that by giving him the cold shoulder or being angry or anything like that, you're going to change him and you're going to control him. Yeah. So these 3 basic false beliefs are, as far as I'm concerned, the basis of everything, including very, maybe not said in the same words, but I think in Faster EFT, we realize right away that we're the only ones we can control. Right. Until we change our stories. And that's why I have found that so helpful. I thought this choice theory and Faster EFT really went well together, except for the fact, as I mentioned, that with choice theory, we don't go back in the past. Dr. Glasser didn't believe in going back in the past at all. But I have found that adds another dimension to the whole process of healing.
Mm-hmm. And who knows, he would have felt differently if he had been privy to what's available today.
That's right. Exactly. I don't know, because now he's passed away, and his institute carries on, I guess, with his principles. I don't think they've changed anything. But the basic ideas are really good.
I absolutely love the name of your website, Lise on Life. I think that is just perfect. It's marvelous. And I imagine you feel like you have a new Lise on Life as well, don't you?
That's right. I really do. It's been quite a journey of healing, both physically. Now I'm still a runner. I still climb mountains, and I'm very active. I mean, maybe I might need a little bit more recuperation time between all these activities, but I am, and I'm looking forward to doing all these things in my later years. And I think the biggest healing happened emotionally and in the very depth of my brain. When we were talking earlier about when we're not made to live in sympathetic nervous system in fight or flight all the time. But as I mentioned, I was in that space most of my adult life. So once I decided that this isn't what I wanted to live, my life started to change dramatically. My relationship, first of all, with my husband improved, with my children, with my friends, but most of all with myself, the relationship with myself. I'm not so hard on myself anymore. Sometimes I'll get carried away, but doesn't take very long that my body tells me you're going down the wrong path. What are you trying to prove? Something happened over the weekend. Here it's a Pacific Northwest, right? It gets very cold and so on, and rainy over the winter. So we had a very wet and cold winter. And all of a sudden, it seemed like summer arrived. It was really warm and sunny and beautiful. So all of a sudden, I wanted to do everything. Clean out the garden, change the winter bedding, clean the house. And I went on a rampage of cleaning and fixing. And then I felt so tired. And I felt all of a sudden, I find myself getting not depressed, but more nervous and picky. I'm picking at my husband things that I wouldn't have done before. And then I said to myself, what are you doing? What what's happening here? So I had to, I sit with myself in the morning. I do that every morning. This is my tapping time, my writing time, my reading time. So I always keep at least an hour. That's how I start the day. And in my writing and thinking in the morning, the expression, coming back to your senses. You know, it's come back to your senses. Is that an appropriate English expression, or is that something you say that right? I thought maybe I was translating that from French. So I was thinking, come back to your senses. Okay, all right, what am I doing? So coming back to what you feel, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, and sit and be quiet and let all of that. And all of a sudden, some of the old program, you have to be perfect. The house has to be perfect. The garden has to be perfect. Well, that's what was coming up. So as this is all coming up, I realized, okay, well, there you go. I went right back to some old stuff that I had learned a long time ago. The difference is, a few years ago, I would have stayed there. And then I would have blamed my husband for me. And I would have said, don't you see that this has to be done and this and that? But now I said, no, not going there. And don't drive your own car. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, it's the old programming coming up. So tap myself. And I felt relieved. I felt I'm going to give myself a day off. And that's what I did yesterday. I canceled. I had yoga in the morning. I said, not going to yoga. Not that I have nothing against yoga, but that's not what I needed. I just needed quiet. I canceled a couple of other things, and I just, did things that I wanted to do, but very slowly, very consciously. I asked the two questions all day. I ask, where am I and how am I? So where am I? Oh, sitting in the garden. How am I? Oh, feeling very relaxed at the moment. Great. Move on to the next activity, which was very slow and not too exciting. Where am I? Oh, in the kitchen. How am I? Preparing dinner. Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I don't feel nervous. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel angry. I feel fine. So all day long, I checked in with myself. And even this morning, as I was thinking that I was going to talk to you, I started feeling a little nervous. So I asked myself, where am I? In my office. How am I? Nervous. Oh, let's let that go. Do we need this? No, I don't think so. So let's let that go. So by checking in with myself at regular interval, I was able to bring my whole body back into homeostasis, into balance. Otherwise, in times past, I would have totally gone into a tailspin of overdoing, overachieving, of misery, of depression, of sadness, and then I get angry because other people don't want to do what I'm doing. So, can't make anybody else do anything.
Nope.
No, you have to negotiate. That's the thing. Anyway, so even though I know a lot about these modalities, it doesn't mean that I don't have the feelings, because that means I'm human, and that's all there is to it. You have the anger. You're very familiar with anger, with sadness, with depression. But the difference is you don't let that get you, dig you in a big hole. You don't do that anymore. You stop before it overwhelms you, way before. It's a wonderful tool for that. You become conscious. Like I say, come back to your senses.
Yes.
Become conscious. Become aware. What's happening in my body? I have a headache. Ooh, that's a good one. My body's telling me my thinking is stressful. My thinking is not what it should be. So as soon as if there's any physical symptoms, there's something happening in my thinking, and it's a thinking that is stressful. But with faster EFT and other modalities, I'm not saying this is the only modality, but this is one that I have found that works really well. With such a modality, you have a tool. You really have the tool in your back pocket, and you say, I don't have to go there. Yeah, sit, quiet. And that brings like your whole body. I can feel my whole body today. The energy was different. I did go out to exercise. I was happy to do it. I didn't feel like I had to. And then I did other office work and different things, and everything was okay. I felt much quieter inside. And I was really looking forward to talking with you.
Good. I'm so glad. I think one of maybe the biggest benefit of faster EFT is realizing that you can be aware and that you can do something about it. And your example was beautiful and perfect. And you and I have not arrived at the top of the mountain. And we are still living and breathing and interacting with ourselves mostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, but this is the tool we use, and we are benefited, and so are the people in our world. Your husband, I'm sure, could say he was.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our relationship has evolved, has changed. It's different. It's more mature. It's not such a sort of aggressive or passive aggressive kind of relationship that it was. It's clearer, brighter. We can say things without fear anymore. My husband is not a faster EFT guy at all. He's not interested in that. When I studied choice theory, because he's an engineer, he likes things that, systems that like that. He really likes. So he understands. He knows when I'm trying to drive his car. You just get out of my car. Let me do my own thing. So that's a good example, because that's what we do in our relationships, is we try to tell the others what to do, and then we feel miserable because they don't want to do it, or they do it, but they do it reluctantly, and then everybody's unhappy. So we have to drive our own car. That means we're responsible for our total behavior of thinking, of doing, of feeling, and physiology, whatever is our responsibility. But you can't use blaming, criticizing, nagging, all these negative behavior and expecting the other person to feel our love. But I love you, but I can't stand what you're doing. Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? That doesn't work. I mean, you learn that after a while. That sometimes I'm sure, I've been thinking about that. I think that a lot of divorces would be avoided if people understood about their emotions and understood that it's their emotion, it's not the other guy's stuff. Yes. And need to deal with their own things. The story that Robert Smith always tells, and it's so funny when he has the couple, he says to the lady, you come and your husband can come next week, but he doesn't show up. And then when she goes back, she says, I don't know what you did to him, but he's changed so much. I thought this was typical. Is as soon as you change your attitude towards yourself and anyone else, especially your husband or your partner, when your attitude changes, they feel that. Yes. They can relax. They can finally relax and say, well, I can watch soccer on TV and, she's not going to bounce on my head and I can just be myself. That's what love is really accepting.
Yes.
The way he is. It doesn't mean that you accept behaviors that are not polite and that are not respectful. I think you have to, when you say it, if something bothers you and you say it in a kind voice, and I think the other person will be able to hear it better. But sometimes when you haven't figured out your own stuff, you use the angry tone and you use really strong words, and it comes out. You might be saying exactly the same thing, but it doesn't have the same effect on the other person.
Right. Well, Lise, if you had one message that you would like to convey to people who are watching today, what would that message be?
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity to leave one final message, and also for being here with you today. I think one final message is, it doesn't matter how unhappy you are at this moment. If you're watching this video and you see, and if you're in a really bad place in your life, you're unhappy, you're sad, you're depressed, you're angry, know that there is hope. That by taking control of your life, taking control of your emotions, learning something like faster EFT will help you immensely. For the rest of your life, you're going to benefit from this. It's an important step into the direction of self-love, self-appreciation, and better relationship with everyone around you. Oh, go for it, I say.
Marvelous. I think your message today has been one of great hope. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. It's a pleasure talking to you today.
And Lise does sessions in French and English. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I will have her information at the end of this video. Thank you again, Lise, for being with us today.
Thank you, Kim. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And Lise and I thank all of you for being with us. Remember, no matter what you've experienced in the past, today is a new day. See you next time.